The pool house door was slightly ajar when Karen arrived, its hinges creaking in the October breeze. She pushed it open cautiously, expecting to find some shadowy figure waiting in the darkness. Instead, she found Dave Martinez, Jim's 20-something son who worked part-time for the landscaping crew. "Dave?" Karen's voice cracked with surprise. "You're the one who's been texting me." The young man was sitting on a stack of pool chemicals, his phone in one hand and a tablet displaying the original, unedited security footage in the other. His usually friendly demeanor had been replaced by something harder, more calculating. "Morning, Mrs. Whitmore," Dave said, not bothering to stand. "Crazy thing happened today. I came in early to fix that pump noise you've been complaining about. You know, the one that's been keeping you up." Imagine my surprise when I found the pool looking like a garbage disposal. Karen's mind raced. Dave had access to the pool area through his landscaping job, which explained how he'd been able to witness her actions. But the security footage, how did you get access to? "The cameras." Dave smiled, holding up a small device Karen recognized as a wireless receiver. Turns out the HOA's fancy new security system broadcasts on an unsecured frequency. Anyone with basic tech knowledge can tap into it. I've been watching the neighborhood for weeks, just out of curiosity. You'd be amazed what people do when they think nobody's looking. Karen felt the walls closing in. "What do you want?" "That's the beauty of it, Mrs. Whitmore. I don't want anything from you. I want something for you." Dave stood up, pocketing his phone. "See, I know about your little editing job this morning. I also know about the backup server that caught everything. But here's what you don't know. I've been documenting your HOA violations for months." He tapped the tablet screen, and Karen watched in horror as video after video played. Her walking her dog off-leash in violation of the pet policy, parking her car in the fire lane during board meetings, using the community center's electricity to charge her personal devices. Dozens of violations, each one carrying hefty fines according to the very rules she'd helped write. "You see, my dad's been getting harassed by you for 3 years over the most ridiculous stuff. Hosing down his driveway during quiet hours. Give me a break. Meanwhile, you've been breaking HOA rules left and right, and nobody says a word because you're the president." Karen's face flushed red. "Those are minor infractions at worst. What I did to the pool was exactly what someone pushed to their breaking point would do," Dave interrupted. "And that's what I'm going to help you prove." Karen blinked in confusion. "Help me?" Dave's expression softened slightly. "Look, Mrs. Whitmore, I don't like you. I think you're a power-hungry busybody who makes everyone's life miserable for no good reason. But what you did this morning, that was human. You were frustrated, you snapped, and you made a stupid mistake. It happens." He gestured toward the contaminated pool. "But if this footage goes public, you'll be crucified, kicked off the board, probably sued for damages, definitely humiliated. Is that really what you want?" "What's your proposal?" Karen asked wearily. "Simple. You step down as HOA president, effective immediately. Cite personal reasons, health concerns, whatever. In exchange, I make sure the original footage disappears permanently. The backup server has a convenient malfunction. The edited version becomes the official record, and everyone assumes it was just some random vandal." Karen stared at him. "You destroy evidence for me." "I destroy evidence of a desperate person having a mental breakdown," Dave corrected. "Because that's all this was, right? A momentary lapse in judgment from someone under too much stress?" The offer hung in the air between them. Karen's presidency meant everything to her. It was her identity, her source of power and respect in the community. But the alternative was total destruction. "I need time to think," she said finally. Dave shook his head. "The maintenance crew arrives in an hour. The board will want answers. You've got until then to decide." He headed toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Mrs. Whitmore, next time you want to stick it to the HOA management company, maybe don't use their own security system to record your crime." As Dave left, Karen sank onto the chemical storage boxes, her head in her hands. Everything she'd built over 3 years was crumbling because of one moment of petty revenge. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent so long policing everyone else's behavior that she'd never considered her own. Her phone buzzed one final time. Dave's number. Think fast. Former president. Karen looked out at the murky pool water, then at her reflection in the pool house window. For the first time in years, she didn't recognize the woman staring back at her. Karen Whitmore stood at her kitchen window at 5:47 a.m., clutching her coffee mug with white knuckles as she watched her neighbor Jim hosing down his driveway. Again, the sound of water hitting concrete was like nails on a chalkboard to her ears. She'd been HOA president of Willowbrook Estates for 3 years. And if there was one thing she couldn't stand, it was residents who flagrantly violated the quiet hours clause. That's it, she muttered, grabbing her phone and speed dialing the HOA violation hotline, which was just her own voicemail. Jim Martinez, 1247 Maple Lane. Noise violation at 5:47 a.m. on Tuesday, October 15th. Recommend $250 fine. But as she hung up, something else caught her eye. The community pool's filtration system was running, churning the water with an obnoxious mechanical hum that had been driving her crazy for weeks. The pool maintenance crew had promised to fix it, but here it was, another morning of that incessant noise disrupting her peaceful breakfast routine. Karen's jaw tightened. She'd filed 17 complaints about that pump in the past month, and nothing had been done. The management company kept giving her the runaround, citing budget constraints and parts availability. Well, if they wouldn't fix the problem, maybe it was time to create a bigger one. She marched to her garage and grabbed 3 bags of kitchen scraps she'd been meaning to compost: coffee grounds, eggshells, and banana peels that had been festering for days in the October heat. Her plan crystallized as she hefted the bags. If the pump was going to make noise, she'd give it something to really struggle with. The community pool area was deserted at this hour, surrounded by perfectly manicured hedges and the kind of decorative iron fencing that looked expensive but was actually just painted aluminum. Karen had the master key to everything in Willowbrook Estates, a privilege she'd fought hard to obtain and guarded jealously. She glanced around once, then dumped the first bag directly into the pool's main drain. Coffee grounds billowed out like a brown cloud, and she felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction. The second bag followed, then the third. By the time she was finished, the pristine blue water looked like a swamp. "Let's see how well your precious pump handles this," she whispered to herself, imagining the maintenance crew's horror when they arrived. But as she turned to leave, she noticed the small red light blinking steadily on the security camera mounted on the pool house. Her blood ran cold. In all her fury about the pump noise, she'd completely forgotten about the new surveillance system the board had installed just last month, a system she herself had voted to approve. The camera had captured everything. Karen stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing through the implications. Then, forcing herself to appear casual, she walked calmly back to her house, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had maybe 6 hours before the pool maintenance crew arrived and discovered her handiwork. 6 hours to figure out how to explain away what would undoubtedly be the most expensive pool cleaning in Willowbrook Estates history. As she reached her front door, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Nice morning for a swim, don't you think, Karen?" Someone had been watching. Karen sat in the pool house for exactly 43 minutes, watching the maintenance crew's van pull into the parking lot through the small window. Her decision crystallized as she saw their shocked faces when they spotted the contaminated pool. She walked out to meet them with her head held high. "Gentlemen," she called out, her voice carrying the same authority it always had, "I'm afraid we have a situation." The crew supervisor, a weathered man named Tony, gestured helplessly at the murky water. "Mrs. Whitmore, I've never seen anything like this. It's going to take days to clean, maybe weeks. The filtration system is completely clogged." "I know," Karen said simply. "I did it." Tony's jaw dropped. Behind him, Dave Martinez had appeared as if summoned by the commotion, his expression unreadable. "I dumped organic waste into the pool this morning," Karen continued, ignoring Dave's shocked stare. "I was frustrated about the pump noise, about feeling ignored by the management company, and I made an inexcusable decision. I take full responsibility." "Mrs. Whitmore," Dave started, But Karen held up a hand to silence him. I've already called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. I'll be submitting my resignation as president and offering to pay for all cleanup costs. She turned to Tony. How much are we talking about? Well, we'll need to drain the entire pool, clean the filtration system, possibly replace some components. Could be anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. Karen nodded calmly. Bill me directly. And gentlemen, I apologize. This was entirely my fault, and it won't happen again. As the maintenance crew began their work, Dave approached her, his earlier confidence replaced by confusion. What are you doing? I offered you a way out. I know you did, Karen said, surprising them both with a genuine smile. And I appreciate it. But I've spent 3 years demanding accountability from everyone in this neighborhood. It's time I held myself to the same standard. But the footage will show exactly what happened. I'm not going to cover this up, Dave. I'm going to own it. Dave studied her face, looking for signs of a breakdown or some hidden angle. You're serious about resigning? Dead serious. Though I do have one request. Karen pulled out her phone and showed him a long list she'd been composing. I'd like you to consider running for president. Someone who actually cares about fairness instead of power. Dave laughed, a sound of genuine surprise. Me? I'm 24 years old. I live with my parents. You're also the only person in this neighborhood who's shown the integrity to stand up to me when I was wrong. That matters more than age or housing situation. The board meeting that afternoon was unlike any in Willowbrook Estates history. Karen stood before her fellow members and delivered a full confession, complete with documentation of her own HOA violations that Dave had compiled. The room was silent as she concluded with her resignation. I became so focused on controlling everyone else's behavior that I lost sight of my own, she said. That ends today. I recommend the board elect Dave Martinez as interim president while you search for a permanent replacement. Board member Patricia Chen spoke first. Karen, while your actions were clearly wrong, your honesty today shows remarkable character. Are you sure you won't reconsider resigning? Perhaps a temporary suspension. I'm sure. Karen interrupted. I need to step back and figure out who I am when I'm not telling other people what to do. 2 weeks later, Karen stood in her kitchen at 5:47 am, watching Jim Martinez hose down his driveway. But instead of anger, she felt something close to peace. The sound of running water no longer seemed like a personal assault. It was just a neighbor maintaining his property. Her doorbell rang, and she opened it to find Dave holding a cup of coffee and a small envelope. Thought you might want to see this, he said, handing her the envelope. Inside was a check from the HOA insurance company, covering 70% of the pool cleanup costs. Turns out, Dave explained, the pool contamination falls under the malicious damage clause. Since you reported it yourself and took responsibility, the insurance company classified it as an honest mistake rather than intentional vandalism. Karen stared at the check, then at Dave's earnest face. You didn't have to help me with this. Actually, I did. You could have taken my deal, covered everything up, and stayed in power. Instead, you chose to do the right thing, even when it cost you everything you thought you wanted. That's the kind of integrity this place needs. As Dave headed back to his patrol of the neighborhood, he being elected president unanimously, Karen felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Genuine respect from a neighbor. She looked out at the community pool, now sparkling clean and properly maintained. The pump ran silently, finally fixed after her dramatic intervention had forced the issue. Sometimes, she reflected, the messiest solutions led to the cleanest results. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A different one this time. Saw the HOA newsletter. Running for city council. You've got my vote. A former adversary who became a friend. Karen smiled, recognizing Dave's writing style. She'd been thinking about city council, actually. After all, she still believed in good governance and community standards. She'd just learned the difference between leading and ruling. The pool incident had cost her a presidency, but gained her something far more valuable. The knowledge that accountability and integrity weren't just rules for other people. And in Willowbrook Estates, That was a lesson worth $8,000. Karen's hands shook as she read the message again. The unknown number had sent it just minutes after her pool incident, which meant whoever was behind it had either witnessed her actions firsthand or had access to the security footage. Neither possibility was good. She spent the next hour pacing her living room, crafting and discarding cover stories. Food poisoning had made her delirious, a sleepwalking episode. Each excuse sounded more ridiculous than the last. Finally, she settled on a strategy that had served her well throughout her HOA tenure: aggressive offense. At 9 a.m. sharp, Karen called an emergency board meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to the 5 other board members gathered in the community center conference room, "we have a serious vandalism problem. Someone has contaminated our pool with organic waste." Board member Patricia Chen looked confused. "When did this happen?" "I discovered it during my morning rounds at approximately 6 a.m. Karen lied smoothly. "Clearly, this is the work of one of those disgruntled residents who've been complaining about HOA fees." "Should we call the police?" asked Treasurer Bob Hendricks. "Absolutely not," Karen said quickly. "We handle these matters internally. I suggest we review the security footage ourselves before involving outside authorities." Her heart hammered as the board agreed. She needed to get to that footage before anyone else did, but she couldn't appear too eager. The meeting dragged on for another hour as they discussed increased patrols and potential suspects. Karen nodded and took notes, playing the role of concerned president while mentally calculating how long she had. The moment the meeting ended, Karen made her excuse about checking on the pool cleanup and rushed to the security office, a cramped room in the basement of the community center where the cameras fed to a central monitoring system. Her hands trembled as she accessed the footage from that morning. There she was, clear as day, dumping garbage into the pool like some kind of eco-terrorist. The timestamp read 5:52 a.m. The camera angle captured her face perfectly. Karen's finger hovered over the delete button, but something stopped her. The system kept automatic backups, and deleting footage would leave digital fingerprints that could be traced back to her administrator access. Instead, she did something far more clever. She edited the timestamp. Using the system's administrative tools, she changed 5:52 a.m. to 11:47 p.m. the previous night, then adjusted the lighting filters to make the footage appear darker, more nocturnal. From a distance, the figure in the video could be anyone, a hooded vandal in the dead of night, rather than the HOA president in her morning robe. There she whispered, saving the changes. Mystery solved. But as she prepared to leave, her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Editing the footage was smart, Karen. But what about the backup server? Karen's blood turned to ice. There was a backup server, one maintained by the security company, completely outside her control. She'd forgotten about it in her panic, but whoever was texting her clearly knew about it. Her phone buzzed the third time. Pool house. 10 minutes. Come on. Karen stared at the message, her carefully constructed cover-up crumbling around her. Someone had been playing her from the beginning, letting her dig herself deeper with each desperate move. Now they wanted to meet. She glanced around the empty security office, weighing her options. She could ignore the text, but that would mean living in constant fear of exposure. She could try to brazen it out, but the backup footage would eventually surface, or she could face her blackmailer head-on. Karen had spent 3 years as HOA president because she never backed down from a fight. She wasn't about to start now. She grabbed her keys and headed for the pool house, her mind already working on contingencies. Whoever was behind this had made one crucial mistake. They'd revealed they wanted something from her. That meant negotiation was possible. And Karen Whitmore had never lost a negotiation in her life. As she walked toward the pool house, the contaminated water still brown and murky from her morning sabotage, Karen allowed herself a thin smile. Her blackmailer might have the upper hand for now, but the game was far from over.